My wife treated me like nothing for months until I stopped begging, chose indifference, and showed her the real cost of disrespect in our marriage story. In our bedroom, and how that revelation led me to show her exactly what being treated like nothing really felt like. It was a Wednesday evening, and I had been working late again. You know that feeling when you come home expecting some warmth, some connection with the person you married? Well, I had been fooling myself for months. When I walked through that door, she barely looked up from her phone. Not unusual anymore. But this time, something was different. This time, I was paying attention. I tried to initiate some intimacy later that night. Nothing crazy, just the kind of connection married couples should have. Her response? She literally rolled her eyes and said she was too tired. Too tired. But the funny thing was, she was not too tired to scroll through social media for another hour. She was not too tired to text her friends. She was just too tired for me. This was not the first time, and that is when it hit me like a freight train. I started counting backwards in my head. When was the last time she actually wanted me? When was the last time she did not act like I was bothering her? 3 months. 3 damn months of rejection, excuses, and being treated like some desperate teenager begging for attention. The worst part was not even the rejection itself, it was the way she did it. Like I was pathetic for even trying, like wanting my own wife was some kind of unreasonable request. She would sigh heavily, act annoyed, sometimes even laugh at my attempts, laugh at me that night lying there in bed while she slept, peacefully beside me. I realized something that changed everything. I was not just being rejected sexually, I was being rejected as a man. She had zero respect for me, zero desire for me, and somehow I had been accepting it like it was normal. But here is the thing that really got to me. During the day, she still expected everything from me. Still expected me to fix things around the house, handle the bills, take care of her car problems, listen to her complaints about work. She wanted all the benefits of having a husband without giving me any of the benefits of being one. I remember lying there thinking about how this all started. It was not sudden, it was gradual, like slow poison. First, it was just occasional rejections. Then, it became routine. Then it became expected. Somehow I trained myself to accept being treated like nothing, and she had learned that she could get away with it. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She made her coffee, got ready for work, same routine. But when she casually mentioned that the bathroom faucet was leaking and needed to be fixed, something inside me snapped, not into anger but into clarity. I looked at her and said, "Fix it yourself." She laughed, thinking I was joking. When she realized I was not, she got this confused look on her face, like she could not understand why the man she had been treating like nothing would not jump to solve her problems anymore. "What has gotten into you?" she asked. I almost laughed at the question. What had gotten into me was finally understanding my worth. What had gotten into me was realizing that respect is not something you beg for. It is something you demand through your actions. That morning I made a decision that would change everything. If she wanted to treat me like nothing in the bedroom, then she was about to learn what being treated like nothing everywhere else felt like. I was not going to argue with her, beg her, or try to convince her to change. I was going to show her exactly what she was losing by her own choices. The game had changed, and she did not even know it yet. But she was about to find out that the man she had been taking for granted was not going to be there anymore. At least not in the way she expected. See, I realized something that night. You teach people how to treat you. And I had been teaching her that she could disrespect me without consequences. That was about to change permanently. The transformation did not happen overnight, but it started immediately. That very day, I began implementing what I call the silent strategy. No arguments, no explanations, no dramatic confrontations, just pure calculated indifference. The first thing I did was stop trying completely. No more attempts at intimacy, no more romantic gestures, no more trying to win her attention. If she wanted to act like I did not exist in the bedroom, then I would act like she did not exist anywhere else. She noticed the change by day 3. I came home from work, said hello, and went straight to the garage to work on my motorcycle, something I'd been putting off for months because I was always too busy doing things for her. When she called me for dinner, I told her I had already eaten. I had not, but I was not about to sit across from someone who treated me like a roommate and pretend we were a happy couple. The beauty of this approach was watching her confusion grow. She had gotten so used to me chasing her, trying to please her, that my sudden absence left her completely off balance. When she asked what was wrong, I would just shrug and say, "Nothing is wrong," with the same tone she had been using on me for months. By the end of the first week, I joined a gym. Not because I was trying to get her attention, but because I realized I had been neglecting myself while trying to please someone who did not appreciate it. Every evening after work, instead of coming home to her cold shoulder, I went and worked out, got my energy out, cleared my head, and came home when I felt like it. She started asking questions. Where were you? Why did not you text me? What is with this new routine? My answers were short and sweet. At the gym. Did not think to. Just taking care of myself. The same energy she had been giving me for months, I was now giving back to her. The weekend came, and this is where it got interesting. Usually, I would spend Saturday morning fixing whatever needed fixing around the house. This time, I got up early, had my coffee, and announced I was going out. She assumed I meant grocery shopping or running errands for us. When she started making a list, I stopped her. I am not running errands for the house, I said. I am going to look at new fishing gear. The look on her face was priceless, like she could not compute that I might do something just for me. She actually asked, "What about the things we need to do?" I told her she was perfectly capable of doing them herself. That is when she started getting frustrated. Not worried, not concerned about our relationship, but frustrated that her personal assistant was no longer available. She tried guilt-tripping me first. "I cannot believe you are being so selfish." My response, "Now you know how it feels." The second week, things escalated. She realized I was not just having a bad few days, I was fundamentally different. When her car started making that noise again, she mentioned it to me, expecting I would take care of it like always. I suggested she call a mechanic. When she needed help moving some furniture, I reminded her that her brother was strong enough to help. Every task, every favor, every little thing she had grown accustomed to me handling without question, I was now treating like it was not my responsibility, because it was not. I was her husband, not her employee. The best part was watching her try to figure out what had changed. She would catch me smiling at my phone and ask who I was texting. Old friends I had reconnected with at the gym, I would say. She would notice I was buying new clothes and ask what the occasion was. No occasion, just felt like looking good for myself, I would reply. What really got to her was that I was not angry. I was not sulking or throwing tantrums. I was just indifferent. And that indifference was driving her crazy because she could not manipulate it like she could my previous neediness. By the third week, she was actively trying to get my attention. She would walk around in less clothing, make comments about how distant I had become, even suggested we watch a movie together. My response to all of it was polite but uninterested. "You can watch whatever you want. I am reading. I am not feeling distant. I am feeling fine. Thanks for the suggestion, but I have got other plans." The woman who had been treating me like nothing for months was now experiencing what it felt like to be nothing to someone else. And the beautiful irony was that I was not doing it to hurt her. I was doing it because I had finally learned to value myself. She started asking friends for advice. I could tell. Suddenly she was making comments about communication in marriage and working through rough patches. But here is the thing about respect. Once it is gone, you cannot just talk it back into existence. You have to earn it back through actions. And she had not even acknowledged that she had lost it in the first place. The month mark hit, and she was completely different. Not better, just different, more attentive, more aware of where I was and what I was doing. But it was not coming from a place of love or desire. It was coming from a place of control. She was realizing she was losing her grip on me, and that terrified her more than losing our connection ever had. Month 2 was when she finally understood that this was not a phase. This was the new reality, and that is when she started getting desperate. The first sign came on a Thursday evening. I was reading in the living room when she walked in wearing that dress. You know the one. Every married man knows the one. The dress that had not seen daylight in over 1 year. She sat down next to me, a little too close, and started talking about her day in that voice she used to use when we were dating. I looked up from my book, gave her a polite smile, and said, "That is nice, honey." Then I went back to reading. The silence that followed was deafening. She sat there for maybe 10 minutes waiting for me to take the bait. When I did not, she got up and left the room. I could practically hear her brain trying to process what had just happened. See, the old me would have dropped everything the moment she showed interest, would have been grateful for any attention she was willing to give. But the new me understood something crucial. Respect is not something you turn on and off like a faucet. You cannot treat someone like garbage for months and then expect them to jump at your first sign of interest. The weekend brought the real test. She suggested we go out to dinner, just the two of us. 1 month ago, I would have been thrilled. Now, I had other plans. I was meeting some guys from the gym to watch the game. Her face when I told her was a masterpiece: confusion, frustration, and something else: fear. "You are choosing your friends over me?" she asked. I almost laughed. This woman had been choosing her phone, her sleep, her everything over me for months. "I am not choosing anyone over anyone," I said. "I am just not available tonight." That is when she started getting nasty. "You are acting like a child," she said. "This whole attitude of yours is ridiculous." I set down my keys and looked at her. "You know what is ridiculous? Thinking you can ignore your husband for months and then expect him to drop everything when you finally decide you want his attention." The look on her face told me she knew exactly what I was talking about, but instead of acknowledging it, she doubled down. "I never ignored you. You are being dramatic." So I did something I had never done before. I called her out with specifics. "Really? Because I can tell you exactly how many times you have rejected me in the past 4 months. I can tell you exactly how many times you have rolled your eyes when I tried to touch you. I can tell you exactly how many times you have made me feel like I was bothering you just for wanting my own wife." She did not have an answer for that because the truth was sitting there between us, and we both knew it. She tried to deflect. "Well, you never said anything about feeling that way." Classic manipulation, making it my fault for not communicating about her behavior. "You are right," I said, grabbing my keys. "I should have said something. I should have told you that treating your husband like he does not exist has consequences. Consider this my official notification," and I left. When I got home that night, she was waiting up for me. Not because she was concerned, but because she was angry. She started in on me the moment I walked through the door. "Where were you? Who were you with? Why did not you answer your phone?" I poured myself a glass of water and looked at her. I was exactly where I said I would be, with exactly who I said I would be with, and I did not answer my phone because I was enjoying myself for the first time in months. That is when she said something that revealed everything. "You are being selfish. Marriage is about compromise." I actually laughed. "You are absolutely right. Marriage is about compromise. So tell me, what exactly have you been compromising on? Because from where I am standing, I have been doing all the compromising while you have been doing all the taking." She tried to turn it around on me. "I compromise all the time. I deal with your moods, your work stress, your demands. Your demands." She actually called my desire for intimacy with my own wife demands. That is when I knew we were beyond the point of no return. "My demands?" I said. "You mean like wanting to feel wanted by my wife? Like expecting basic respect in my own home? Like hoping the woman I married might actually act like she enjoys being married to me?" Each word hit its mark, and I could see her deflating. But instead of apologizing, instead of acknowledging what she had done, she got defensive. "You do not understand the pressure I am under. You do not understand how tired I am." More excuses, more reasons why her behavior was justified. "You are right," I said. "I do not understand. I do not understand how you can be too tired for your husband but not too tired for social media. I do not understand how you can be too stressed for intimacy, but not too stressed to go out with your friends. I do not understand how you can expect me to be there for you when you are never there for me." The conversation ended with her storming off to the bedroom and slamming the door. I slept on the couch that night, not because I was kicked out, but because I chose to. The symbolic power of that choice was not lost on either of us. The next morning brought a new phase. She started trying to bargain. "Maybe we should go to counseling. Maybe we should try harder to communicate." But notice what she was not saying. She was not acknowledging her part in creating this mess. She was trying to fix the symptom without addressing the disease. I told her I was not interested in counseling with someone who did not think they had done anything wrong. "When you are ready to admit that you have been treating me like nothing, then we can talk about fixing things. Until then, I am going to continue treating you exactly how you have been treating me." That afternoon, she tried a different approach. She cooked my favorite meal, put on music, tried to create a romantic atmosphere. But romance without respect is just manipulation. When I politely thanked her for dinner and went to work on my motorcycle afterward, she finally started to understand that the man she had been taking for granted was gone forever. By month 3, the ripple effects of my transformation were spreading beyond our bedroom. She was starting to see what losing me actually meant in practical terms, and it was hitting her harder than she had expected. It started with the small things. Her car registration needed renewing, something I had always handled. When she mentioned it, I told her the Department of Motor Vehicles was open until 5. She stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. "You are not going to take care of it?" she asked. "It is your car," I replied. "You are perfectly capable of handling your own responsibilities." The look of genuine shock on her face told me everything. She had become so accustomed to me managing her life that she had forgotten how to manage it herself. And now that I was not volunteering to be her personal assistant anymore, she was lost. Her sister called that weekend to invite us to a family barbecue. In the past, I would have automatically said yes, cleared my schedule, and made sure we showed up with something to contribute. This time, when she told me about the invitation, I said, "Sounds fun, you should go." She asked if I was coming, and I told her I had other plans. "What other plans?" she demanded. I joined a weekend hiking group through the gym, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for because I was always available for her family events, her social obligations, her priorities. She could not understand it. "Since when do you choose hiking over family?" she asked. Since I realized that her family had never treated me like family, just like a convenient accessory to their daughter. Since I understood that showing up to things out of obligation instead of desire was just another form of being taken for granted. The barbecue incident caused our first real fight in months. Not because I was angry, but because she was furious. "You are embarrassing me," she said. "What am I supposed to tell my family?" I suggested she tell them the truth, that her husband was finally living his own life instead of just existing in hers. That is when she said something that revealed how deep her entitlement went. "This is not the man I married." She was right. The man she married was a pushover who prioritized her happiness over his own self-respect. The man she married would have accepted being treated like nothing and asked for more. "You are absolutely right," I told her. "The man you married would have tolerated being disrespected. The man you married would have begged for scraps of attention. The man you married did not know his own worth. That man is gone." Her response was to try guilt-tripping me with our wedding vows. We promised to be there for each other through better or worse. I almost applauded the irony. Where exactly were you during my worst? Where were you when I needed you to want me? Where were you when I needed you to respect me? Because from where I am standing, you only remember those vows when they benefit you. The next week brought the involvement of outside parties. Her mother called me directly, something that had never happened before. She wanted to know what was wrong with me, why I was treating her daughter so poorly. I listened politely and then asked her a simple question. "Has your daughter told you how she has been treating me?" The silence that followed told me everything. She had not mentioned the months of rejection, the eye rolls, the complete lack of intimacy or respect. She had only told them that I was being distant and unsupportive. Classic victim manipulation. Tell everyone about the consequences while hiding the actions that caused them. I ended the call politely but firmly. "I appreciate your concern, but this is between my wife and me. If she wants to share the whole story with you, that is her choice. But I will not be defending myself against accusations based on half-truths." Her friends started getting involved too. I could tell because she would have these long phone conversations and hushed tones followed by her coming to me with new strategies. "Everyone thinks we should try date nights. My friend says couples go through rough patches. Maybe we should take a vacation together. All external solutions to an internal problem. All ways to avoid addressing the fundamental issue that she had lost respect for me and I had lost interest in begging for it back." The breaking point came when she tried to involve my own friends. She called one of my buddies from work and told him she was worried about me, that I was going through some kind of midlife crisis. When he mentioned it to me, I set the record straight immediately. "Crisis?" I laughed. "This is the opposite of a crisis. This is the first time in years I felt like myself." I explained the situation honestly, not to bash her, but to give him the context she had conveniently left out. His response was exactly what I expected. "Good for you, man. About time." That evening, she confronted me about talking to people about our private business. The irony was staggering. She had been talking to everyone, her family, her friends, even my friends. But somehow I was the one violating privacy by giving them the full story instead of her edited version. "You are right," I said. "Our business should stay private. So maybe you should stop calling everyone looking for allies and start addressing the actual problem." She asked what I meant by the actual problem. After 3 months of this, she was still pretending not to know. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. "The actual problem is that you destroyed your husband's self-respect for months, and now you're upset that he found it again. The actual problem is that you want all the benefits of being married without any of the responsibilities. The actual problem is that you are not sorry for what you did. You are just sorry it finally had consequences." That night, for the first time in months, she tried to initiate intimacy, not because she wanted me, but because she was panicking. She finally understood that I was not playing hard to get. I was genuinely no longer interested in someone who had shown me so clearly how little she valued me. When I politely declined, she broke down completely. "What do you want from me?" she cried. The question hung in the air between us, loaded with months of accumulated damage. What did I want? I wanted her to want me. I wanted her to respect me. I wanted her to treat me like a husband instead of a burden. But most importantly, I wanted her to understand that those things could not be manufactured on demand after months of the opposite behavior. Her question hung in the air, "What do you want from me?" For the first time in months, she was asking the right question, but she was asking it about 4 months too late. I sat down across from her and decided it was time for complete honesty. I want you to understand what you did to us. I want you to acknowledge that you turned your husband into a stranger in his own home. But most importantly, I want you to understand that some things cannot be undone just because you finally realize you do not like the consequences. She tried to interrupt, but I was not finished for months. You made me feel like wanting my own wife was pathetic. You made me feel like I was bothering you by existing. You turned intimacy into something I had to beg for, and then acted like I was unreasonable for wanting it. I never meant to make you feel that way, she said. The classic non-apology. Not "I am sorry I did that," but "I am sorry you felt that way." Like my feelings were the problem, not her actions. Intent does not matter when the impact is this clear, I replied. A person can accidentally step on your foot, but your foot is still broken. You accidentally destroyed my respect for this relationship, and now you are upset that I am not limping around pretending it did not happen. That is when she finally got angry. Really angry. So, what? You are just going to punish me forever? You are going to hold this over my head for the rest of our marriage? There it was. The real issue. She was not sorry for what she had done. She was just tired of dealing with the consequences. Punish you? I almost laughed. I am not punishing you. I am protecting myself. There is a difference between punishment and boundaries. Punishment would be me trying to hurt you back. Boundaries are me refusing to be hurt again. She started crying then, but not the kind of tears that come from genuine remorse. These were frustrated tears, angry tears, the tears of someone who could not manipulate their way back to the status quo. I want my husband back, she sobbed. I want things to go back to how they were. And there was the core of the problem. She wanted to go back to a dynamic where she held all the power and I had none. Where she could treat me however she wanted and I would just take it. The husband you want back never existed, I told her. You want back the man who would accept disrespect and call it love. You want back the man who would beg for attention from someone who clearly did not want to give it. That man was dying slowly, and you were killing him. She tried a different approach. She started talking about love, about commitment, about working through problems together. But love without respect is just dependence. Commitment without equality is just bondage. And working through problems requires both people to acknowledge that problems exist. Do you love me? She asked desperately. It was a trap question and we both knew it. If I said yes, she would use it as leverage to guilt me back into accepting her behavior. If I said no, she would use it as evidence that I was the problem. I love the woman I married, I said carefully. But I do not recognize her anymore. The woman I married would not have treated me like an inconvenience. The woman I married would not have made me feel unwanted in my own home. The woman I married would not have spent months destroying my self-worth and then acted surprised when I finally found it again. She asked what it would take to fix things. I told her the truth. It would take you understanding that this is not about you making it up to me. This is about you becoming the kind of person who would not have done this in the first place. And that is not something that happens overnight. How long? She asked. How long do I have to prove myself? The question revealed that she still did not understand. She was thinking in terms of a timeline, a punishment period, something she could endure until things went back to normal. There is no timeline, I explained. There is no going back to normal. Normal was you disrespecting me and me accepting it. Normal was broken. What we have now is honest. You are experiencing what it feels like to be treated with the same energy you have been giving me. That is when she made her final play. She suggested counseling again, but this time with conditions. She had found a therapist, made an appointment, and wanted us to commit to working on things. But she wanted me to promise that I would try to get back to how things were before. I looked at her for a long moment before responding.
I will go to counseling with you under one condition. You have to be willing to admit that how things were before was the problem, not the solution. You have to be willing to acknowledge that you created this situation through your choices, and you have to understand that the goal is not to fix me and bring me back to someone who accepts disrespect. It is to build something completely new. Her face told me everything I needed to know. She was not ready for that level of accountability. She wanted counseling to fix me, not to examine her own behavior. She wanted professional validation that I was overreacting,
not professional help in understanding why her husband had emotionally checked out of their marriage. Think about it, I told her. Really think about whether you are ready to take responsibility for your part in this. Because if you are not, then counseling is just going to be an expensive way for you to hear truths you do not want to face. The conversation ended with her retreating to the bedroom again. But this time, something was different. This time, I think she finally understood that I was not bluffing, was not going through a phase, was not trying to manipulate her into treating me better. I was simply done accepting less than I deserved. And if she could not provide that, then she was about to learn what life looked like without the man she had been taking for granted for so long. The next morning, she left for work without saying goodbye. For the first time in our marriage, the silence did not bother me because it was honest silence, not the loaded silence of unspoken resentment and unmet expectations. I had given her the truth. What she did with it would determine everything that happened next. 2 weeks passed after our confrontation and she made her choice. She scheduled the counseling appointment and told me she was ready to take responsibility for her actions. But actions speak louder than words, and I was watching her actions carefully. The first session was exactly what I expected. She spent most of the time explaining how I had become distant and cold, how I was not the same person she married. The therapist, to her credit, asked pointed questions. What was happening in your relationship before this change in behavior? All valid feelings, but not valid excuses for treating your spouse like garbage. The therapist asked me directly, how did that treatment make you feel? I did not sugarcoat it. I explained exactly how it felt to be rejected by your own wife, to be made to feel like a burden for wanting connection, to slowly lose yourself while trying to please someone who could not be pleased. When the session ended, she was quiet on the drive home. Not angry quiet, but thoughtful quiet. That evening, she did something she had not done in months. She apologized. Not a surface level, I am sorry you felt that way apology, but a real one. I am sorry I made you feel unwanted. I am sorry I took you for granted. I am sorry I turned our marriage into something you had to survive instead of something you wanted to be in. It was the first genuine acknowledgement of responsibility I had heard from her. But apologies are just words until they are backed up by changed behavior. So I told her exactly that. I appreciate the apology. Now show me it means something. Show me that you understand what you almost lost. Over the next month, she did exactly that. Not through grand gestures or dramatic changes, but through consistent daily choices. She put her phone away when we talked. She initiated conversations about things that mattered. She started treating me like someone she actually wanted to be around instead of someone she was stuck with. The biggest change was in how she approached intimacy. Instead of treating it like a chore or an obligation, she started approaching it like something she actually wanted. The difference was night and day. When someone wants you versus when someone tolerates you, there is no comparison. But here is the thing. I did not immediately go back to how things were. I could not. 4 months of learning to value myself could not be undone in a few weeks of better behavior. I appreciated her efforts, acknowledged her changes, but I maintained my boundaries. She noticed. Of course, you are still keeping me at arm's length, she said one evening. She was not wrong. Trust once broken does not rebuild automatically just because the person stops breaking it. I am protecting what we are building, I explained. The old version of me would have jumped back into full vulnerability the moment you started treating me better, but that version of me also accepted being treated poorly. This version of me needs to see sustained change, not just temporary improvement. It frustrated her sometimes. I could tell she wanted immediate forgiveness, immediate return to full intimacy and connection. But she was learning that consequences do not disappear just because you stop causing them. Some damage takes time to heal, even when both people are committed to healing it. 3 months into this new dynamic, something shifted. Not in me giving in, but in her truly understanding. She stopped asking when things would go back to normal, and started focusing on making our new normal better than what we had had before. She started planning date nights, real ones, where she was fully present and engaged. She started initiating conversations about our future, our goals, things we wanted to do together. Most importantly, she started treating me like a partner she chose, rather than a responsibility she inherited. The respect came back gradually, not because I demanded it, but because I had shown her what life looked like without it. She had experienced what it felt like to be treated with indifference, and she did not like it. More importantly, she understood that it was a direct result of her own choices. 6 months after that initial conversation, we were in a completely different place, not because we had gone back to how things were, but because we had built something entirely new, something based on mutual respect rather than one-sided accommodation. She never again treated intimacy like a burden. She never again made me feel like wanting my wife was pathetic. She never again took for granted that I would be there regardless of how she treated me, because she had learned what happens when you treat someone like nothing. Eventually you become nothing to them. The man who used to beg for attention was gone. In his place was someone who knew his worth and would not accept less than he deserved. The woman who used to take that man for granted was also gone. In her place was someone who appreciated what she had and worked daily to deserve it. Our marriage did not survive because we went back to the way things were. It survived because we both became better versions of ourselves. She became someone worth being married to, and I became someone who would not accept being married to anyone who was not. Some people might call what I did extreme. Some might say I should have communicated better, tried harder, been more patient. But here is what I learned. You teach people how to treat you. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to accept being treated poorly. My wife learned that treating me like nothing would result in her becoming nothing to me. It was a hard lesson, but it was necessary. And in the end, it saved our marriage by forcing both of us to become people worthy of being married to each other. The respect was real now. The intimacy was genuine now. The partnership was equal now because I had stopped accepting anything less, and she had learned to provide nothing less. That is what happens when you stop begging for what you deserve and start demanding it through your actions. Our story has come to an end. If you have made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I have selected 2 other videos for you that I am sure you will enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I will be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.